In December 2014, I was in the mall doing some Christmas shopping, and there was a big crowd walking by, and they were a demonstration saying, "Don't shoot, hands up." And we all know what that means. And I thought by now racism would become less, or hatred and anger with groups against each other would be a lot better. But we have seen Ferguson, we've seen Charleston, and we have seen different groups like Baltimore, and it seems that it is increasingly getting worse, even to the point that cops have been shot. So what is the answer? What is the answer about racism of those that feel offended, those that feel they're doing nothing wrong, and how do you meet the middle man? How do you work through that? That is the topic today, which is a hot topic on the media. And is there an answer how to fix this problem? Do you make violence and fight it with violence, or is there another way about it? How does God talk about that, and how does he address this? And with me is Coach Shannon McCoy today, and he has a lot to say just about this topic that I think can be a huge help to you today as well. Shannon, welcome back to the show.
Well, thanks for having me, Barb. It's great to be here today.
I am glad you're joining us, and we have of course heard the statement, Black Lives Matter. Mm-hmm. When you hear that, what would your reaction be?
Well, I have a couple of reactions. The first one is probably, duh, but, because I kind of think that when because I have this gut reaction that's like, hello, do we have to say that? And that the other side is, well, I guess for some people they need that reminder, which is really odd to me. So, my message is, all lives matter, and let's get that straight. So it does have a reaction, has a gut reaction to me.
Why the gut reaction? Why is it like that? Because when I heard it, I was like, what's the big deal here? Because
Right.
I've never been impacted by that, but
Right.
you have been. So why is that first gut reaction saying, duh?
Yeah, I think for me, it's like after all these years, seriously, that we're still, dealing with these issues. And I think the fact that I just believe that ignorance is behind that, to tell somebody that Black Lives Matter or any other racist life, that life matters to mankind or to your community, to your neighborhood is, somewhat ridiculous. Well, not somewhat, absolutely ridiculous, to be quite honest. So that's why it has a gut reaction.
Really? Because of course, you're black, I'm white, that's, who cares?
Right.
But that's the way it is.
Right.
So, because my reaction when I saw that on the media and on the news, it was like, aren't we over this by now? Why don't we just move on? And
Right.
what is the real problem? Haven't we outgrown this problem?
Right.
But I think you see that differently.
I see it differently because I feel like I deal with it in different ways, that I'm experiencing prejudice still.
Still today?
Absolutely.
Even
yeah.
in Oregon?
Oh,
Tell
yeah.
me about it.
Yeah, well, I think that and you could look at, tons of examples as far as when it comes to, positions of authority or hiring individuals in that area, and just the way you see, there's not very many black people moving to Oregon, let's put it that way. Not Southern Oregon, maybe to the Portland area, where it's more of closer to a metropolis over there. But in Southern Oregon, you're not going to see that for quite some time, I think, because even though we have a university there, which is where all the diversity is in Ashland, Oregon, you still have the entire Rogue Valley with very few, black people working at some of these jobs that I would think that they would kind of reach out and try to support more of a diversified community. But, I've been there for 24 years, and I'm not seeing it.
Right.
Yeah.
And it's probably less like that in the bigger cities, I assume.
Yeah, absolutely. This is a smaller city.
Now, you say, like you said, duh, to racism. So have you ever experienced racism yourself as a child? When did this start?
Absolutely. I was born in '69, and my folks were my dad was born in the Bay Area. I was born in San Francisco. Brother was born in San Francisco, but at about age 3, we moved to Yuba City, California. So you got Northern California out in, quite a few orchards out towards the Sutter Buttes. And we were either the only black family there or one of the few within the vicinity of that area out in Tierra Buena. And yeah, I was I learned at a very early age. I would say probably about I'd say about 5. I started really learning what racism really was.
What happened that moment?
Well, I started hearing the terms that black people were being called there, and I didn't even know what it meant. And so the first time I heard the N-word, I had no clue what they were talking about. I had to ask my mom about it, and that's when the first time I had ever heard it. My dad was one of those people. He that word wasn't going to be used in the house, regardless of how some black people say, "Well, we own that word now." My dad was like, "No, we don't use that word. It's derogatory." His mom was that way. We don't use that term, so we didn't learn it as children.
Now nowadays, the youth is saying, especially younger people, they call us like that. They call us names. We react, and we're gonna fight, shoot the cops. Mm-hmm. What is it that your parents taught you?
Well, my parents always taught me to never retaliate. My dad was more of the one that would say, "Turn the other cheek." My mom was a little bit more hardcore. She was raised in Mississippi. Okay, so she saw some pretty hard stuff go down, and so in her opinion, turn the other cheek if they say something, but if you're, think you're going to be attacked, you need to do, and you need to protect yourself. So we had to find a nice balance there, because quite literally, if we didn't learn to fight, or if we weren't good at fighting, we probably wouldn't have survived. That's how bad it was.
Wow.
At a young age, yeah.
So, of all situations, you choose to start dating a white girl.
Oh, yeah.
And I can say that because I'm white.
Yeah,
so
right, yeah.
You start dating a white girl.
Right.
What reaction had that in your area?
Right, yeah, that was quite some time into, obviously, the reality is there were no other girls other than white girls, so I mean, that's why when I because I have white men will ask me, "What's up with you guys?" and the white women or whatever. I've said, seriously, I mean, in an area like this, I mean, who else did you expect me to date, And so it is kind of in that sense, because I don't really care.
Right.
I love all people. So the reality is, if I'm ever going to date, would be somebody that's either white or Hispanic in that area. And then eventually, we have more of a Indian population that's moved in, but yeah, there's not
much. So what was the reaction of your parents? What was the reaction of the people around you?
Oh, it's huge. I mean, but that started even before that. I mean, even as a kid, in kindergarten, I started realizing that was
huge issue.
Yeah, huge issue.
Yeah. I want to talk about that a little more. Yeah. I'm like, because it's, I don't want to diminish the problem, even if it seems for me ridiculous. It's still not in the wrong way, but why does it exist? That is more the reason. But before we do that, how do you deal with it? And what is the answer with the big protests and the hands up, don't shoot? What is the right way to respond? We'll be right back.
Barb TV is building a fantastic community of followers who love the show, love all the messages that Barb's bringing and all of her guests. Follow us on Facebook. Go to facebook.com/Barb TV and just like the segments, like the shows, so we know the content that you want to hear from us. Barb TV will make a big impact on your life, so go to facebook.com/Barb TV.
Hi, my name is Janice, and I am the TV show guest coordinator for the Barb Marshal Show. You've been watching our shows, and just wanted to briefly talk with you and ask you if you have a story that you would like to share with us, and we possibly get you in an interview with Barb. Please contact me at barbtv.org.
Racism is morally, socially, and scientifically and biblically wrong. When we realize that we're all of one blood, the more peace, freedom, and opportunity all of us will have. And that's a quote by Zig Ziglar. And I could not agree any more with that, because that is right on. Why does the different color of a skin make such an impact on certain areas? And how can we fight it in a way that there is issues that are going to be resolved instead of being created into bigger issues. And Shannon, thank you for being on the show today. You married actually a white woman, a blonde. And I know there was that opposition that you were fighting with it. What was the hardest in those parts?
You know, I would say probably the most difficult for me was the reminder that I'm black and she's white all the time, because I would almost forget, because it just wasn't an issue for me, you know. And so it was being pulled over and stopped and having her being checked by the police to see if she was okay, this foolishness like that. As a married couple, I mean, that's not something that everybody has to deal with, right? Is to make sure that you're okay because you're with that person, or if I'm with one of her brothers, if they're okay with, you know, if that, because it just wasn't seen, you know, in that, during that time. And that at that time it was only, we're talking the 90s, we're talking early 90s.
That's not that long back though.
Yeah, that's early 90s after high school.
So how was she coping with it all?
Well, for her, I think, well, it was a challenge for her because, you know, she had a grandfather that disowned her, and she had so she had some issues, you know, that she had to deal with emotionally, and she had, but you know, she was kind of, I think it kind of made her more rebellious in some ways, you know, kind of made her stand out a little bit more with our relationship, want to go places that I wasn't even comfortable going sometimes because I knew certain people would have issues, you know, and so in some ways I didn't want to push it and go into like a town that's even smaller than the town we're from and just act like we could just go anywhere, because that wasn't really the case. I mean, there's gonna be some guys that'll probably say something or do something, and yeah, so I found myself being a little, you know, a lot more comfortable. If I was with a black woman, I wouldn't even think about it. I mean, I might think that they might have issues with us, but they'll probably leave us alone. They might stare or whatever because it's a small town. They don't never see any black people there. Well, that's one thing, but different race, they don't like it, and they make it more of a like as if we're different kinds. You're like, we're not. It's not humankind. It's they're seeing different kinds, like as if, you know, we're talking, you know.
So what would your solution be for those people in the middle of those moments, that the name calling, the pulling over extra, the saying to your wife, "Are you okay?" What was your solution during those times? What could fix the problem?
I think what could fix the problem is, you know, people checking in with themselves. You know, that would be ideal, to check in with themselves and saying, what's my intent here? What's my motivation? You know, why did I decide that I'm going to pull this person over? Why did I decide to ask those questions?
But that doesn't work, because people usually don't think, they don't think there's a problem with them. They probably thought there was a problem with you.
Right, exactly.
So how can you come across to them in that way?
Yeah, and I think that's the biggest challenge, because you're talking about someone that's like they've been programmed already.
Right.
So what they believe what they've seen on TV, they believe what their parents told them, that's their reality. So you know, so it does have to be, you know, it's a higher calling than just me talking to them.
Right.
And me being a nice guy. I could be a wonderful, loving, nice guy, and that may change some, you know, maybe alter some people's point of view because of their experience. Others are going to just be entrenched, dig their heels in deeper, and say, well, you know, that's because of this or that. You know, justify their response or their hatred or their attack for whatever reason. You know?
Now, with your time during that, you of course want to fix it, and it feels like you can't. But there's always ways, like Martin Luther King, of course, Jr.
Right.
Incredible examples out there, which we'll talk about a little bit later. But your wife actually divorced you, and you said it was partially because she was struggling with the racism that you constantly were fighting.
Right.
Can you explain that to me?
Right, and it was, you know, in hindsight, I could see where the issues were so intense, and you know, maybe even when their expectation to be around other Christian people who you would assume would be you know, the beacons of, you know, this is how we treat people, when they don't even realize that they've slipped into that world and that realm of viewing people at different levels and viewing them, some as lesser than others, and having no clue that they feel that way. You know, in my opinion, they have no clue. The things that they say, the statements that they make, they don't even realize that they have such a strong issue, or this, you know, underlying anger sometimes against different races.
Did it hurt you that your wife divorced you and it was partially because of you being black and her being white?
Yes, it did, and of course, in hindsight, she wouldn't do that now. I mean, now she's
right.
She regrets that, but yeah, it did hurt in a sense that.
You wanted her to fight, wouldn't you?
Right,
Wouldn't
yeah.
you say, I'm not going to accept this, I'm not going to put up with
Right,
this?
yeah.
Or is that starting to push it to the way where the extreme situations now
Right.
go to, what is that balance?
Yeah, and it's difficult because, I have to say that one of the things she loved about me the most is because I'm a fighter. I don't give up, I don't quit. I achieve what I set, out to do. I'm a very loyal, dedicated person to whatever it is I decide to accomplish, right? So there's that. But it's also the part that really she wanted to get away from, because it's a reminder of her that she's quitting, she's given up, she's had enough, and it made her feel bad that I would talk about it as if it's water's off a duck's back, and really, these are some pretty hardcore issues that even
right.
for me, I'd have to say that I could easily go into a place and not let it sink in so much.
What keeps you from going to that place?
I would say that, it's definitely my background, and, I've been, raised to, I've been reading the Bible since I was a little kid. My mom has always taught me to be more like Jesus Christ and the way that I treat people. And it's been, that example, in some ways, it's like I could say that I've over-romanticized that, because that's who I wanted to be. I wanted to be like that. People would see that, they'd want to be more like that, okay? Well, the reality is there's some like that, and there's others who see that as a weakness. They see that as that meekness or humility. They want to, some people would say, maybe I should fight more. There's other people that would look at that and, or it just doesn't move some people, where the way you would think it would. I mean, look at all this time. There's some people that have done beautiful, wonderful things of all different nationalities, but what do people think of? They think about this one thing that they did, or this huge movement that this nationality
Aren't
is
we
doing.
all like that, though?
Yeah,
it's
it
kind
happens,
of, we
yeah.
hear the one negative and not the 10 positives at
Absolutely.
all. So, but you didn't stay there. God actually ended up using that time of you, that you were right there of that hardship, and turned it around for good. And
right.
I want to go to that in a minute. Right. And next, how do you overcome, and how do you make a negative in a positive? Stay tuned. We're starting a brand new series, and it is all about living in the presence of God. Did you know that God wants to talk to you every single day? Do you realize that fear is not of God? The fear that you're afraid of everything around in your life? And do you get it that you don't have to live in a struggle every day, not in a survival mode, but that you can thrive and live a fulfilling life that makes a difference for you, for your family, and also for those around you? When you start listening to God, is what I want you to get to do, because once you get it, you start living, you start serving, and you will love your life in a way like never ever before. Go to us, 855-515-5550 or barbtv.org. God loves you. Get to know Him. A lot of times in opposition is that something good comes out of it, even in the long run. And that was exactly what happened with Coach Shannon McCoy, because even if he was divorced, through that time he learned how to become successful, how to become victorious with a mission and a vision. And that's what he's teaching many people today. So what is it that you can do with racism or even your own life to make the best of something that seems the worst. Now, Shannon, you went through a hard ordeal in your life. You have experienced racism. You went through a divorce, and yet God turned that around for good. Tell me a little bit about that.
Yeah, well, I would say that I've learned so much from my experiences that I did use it as a force for good, as a fuel to say, okay, well, again in my life, another time where I could say, this is what I don't want in my life, and this is who I want to be, and I had to, put my heels in and say, this is how I want to live my life, and I want to be a good father, I want to be a great son to my parents. I want to be an excellent friend. I don't want to have carry these issues around with me. I don't want the negative energy. To me, that's losing. To win would be for me to use it as, to figure out what my passion is, to get crystal clear on that and achieve it in a way that
is it almost like proving them wrong by doing what is right?
Absolutely.
And is that what you're teaching your life coaching?
Yeah, I do, and so there's a part of that is true, that so I want to do what's right, but it's more about me than it is about them. I try to make it more about who I want to be, and be authentic and be real and have integrity, because I know who I want to be, and I also want to display, to manifest the type of spirit and the type of personality that I want other people to manifest, to display. Yeah. So if I live it, there's going to be individuals who will catch on to that and say, "Wow, I want to be like that." And there's going to be some individuals who, it's not going to impact them at all, and that's their choice. But I can't, But my focus is on who. Your
focus is on helping the one that wants to be helped, right, and not worry about the ones that don't.
Yeah, I worry about them, but I don't try to change them. I don't use that kind of energy for that. No.
So what is it exactly that you're teaching in your program? You just have a brand new program.
Yeah.
Tell me quickly about that.
Yeah. So what I do is, I work with single parent entrepreneurs, which is what I am myself. And we get extremely overwhelmed, as a single parent, having no idea how to deal with the onslaught of demands for our times. And so what I do is I try to, especially individuals that are in that situation, they fear that they're never going to reach their fullest potential in life. So I help them to focus. I help them to prioritize their life like a genius. So what matters most becomes crystal clear, so they could be both the parent and entrepreneur they've always wanted to be.
So are you basically helping them to understand their purpose, their mission, their vision, and put a business plan together for their entrepreneurship in what they're doing?
Yeah, in some cases that is what's happening, is they're creating something that they've never done before. And so in that sense, that I'm the support, I am that one to help them hold themselves accountable to make it happen. And then there's others that already have a business and they're struggling, or they have a vision but they have not making the kind of progress that they want, and they know that if they had that supporting hand, that supporting phone call, or even a system to have a great routine to keep their mind right, to have that mindset to where nobody pulls them off track, because they really need to hit the target each and every time, because a single parent, it's serious. This is the busiest market segment in the world, as somebody that maybe doesn't have any family and they have children and trying to make it happen.
I think I can relate with it, because at the time when I was single, I had a 1 and 3 and a 5-year-old. Yeah. And if I would have had someone like you, Shannon, come along during that time to give me focus and plan, instead of struggling from one crisis to another,
right.
I know that would have made a big difference, learning to respond instead of to react.
Yeah, it makes
that would have been very, very helpful. What is the biggest advice you right now could give to our audience as a single parent trying to get ahead?
I find it absolutely essential to find out where your boundaries need to be. It doesn't sound like something that's exciting to help. Well, I need more boundaries in my life. The reality is, if you don't have boundaries set around the time, block time that you need to accomplish your dream, your goal, your vision, it's not going to happen. And as the people that love you the most may be the individuals that you sometimes have to set boundaries with, and make your time count with that individual, but maybe have them support you in achieving your dream as well.
Sounds good. Yeah. Now, if somebody wants to get a hold of your website, where can they go?
They can go to coachmccoy.com, CoachMcCoy.com, And you can reach me through my website. Yeah.
Well, Shannon, thank you so much. It was a great privilege to have you on the show. And can I give you my book?
Absolutely.
Ransomed, Loving Yourself from the Inside Out.
Thank you.
Thank you for teaching people how to love themselves from the inside out and to make a difference in this world.
Thank you.
And then how do you deal with opposition and struggle? Well, Shannon already talked about it, and he showed you that you don't react in anger because it makes matters worse. And I think it backs up Martin Luther King Jr. right there. And the quote he said out of Strength to Love is, "Hate cannot drive out hate. Only love can do that." And one of my favorite speeches is when he talked about, "I have a dream." And it says this: he saved his most dramatic exhortations for last. When we allow freedom to ring, when we let it ring from every village and hamlet, from every state and every city, we will be able to speed up that day when all of God's children, black men, white men, Jews and Gentiles, Catholics and Protestants, will be able to join hands and sing in the words of the old Negro spiritual, "Free at last, free at last. Thank God Almighty, we are free at last." And God backs that up, or God actually was first. Because when he talks about that in Proverbs 29, verse 22, he says what we should not do. And that's: an angry man stirs up strife, and a hot-tempered man abounds in transgressions. And you know what God's way is? God's way is all lives matter. Because it says it here, "For there is no partiality with God." It does not matter the skin color, it does not matter who you are or what you do, but you matter to God, and he loves you unconditionally. So how do you respond in a way that is effectively? John 13:34 says that, "A new commandment I give to you, that you love one another, even as I have loved you, that you also loved one another." And Jesus loved us in a sacrificial love. Jesus loves you in a sacrificial love. And he wants to help you right now where you're at. Contact us. We want to pray with you, and we want to let you know that you matter. It's 855-515-5550, or go to our website, barbtv.org. Next week, when you're sentenced to death in Saudi Arabia, how do you overcome a situation like that? This is a faith builder, this is an encourager, and it changed my life, and it will yours too. See you next week.